Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm joined today by Daniel Hamilton Charlton from Property Searches Direct. Hi, Daniel. How are you doing?
David, I am great. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me today.
Absolutely great to have you with us. Daniel, you and I have spoken before and we've spoken off camera, so I have a flavor of what it is that you do and your unique take on how we can improve certain areas of our industry, particularly around the conveyancing process. But why don't you give us a little bit of background how you why you started Property Searches Direct and what it aims to do?
Yeah, it's a good question, David. We looked at why I set up Property Searches Direct was to give the home moving audience choice. We looked at the pinch points of some of the delays, some of the catastrophic delays in the conveyancing process, and thought, is there a better way? We had the luxury, I had the luxury to just take a step back from the coalface and see whether there was something else that we could be doing to make people's lives easier, to reduce stress, to hopefully improve their experience of moving home so that perhaps they consider doing it more than once every 23 years. But searches were the bane of people's lives. Something that they weren't necessarily being introduced to until quite a long way into the process, something that was seen more as a tick boxing exercise rather than something that a consumer buying a property should actually have an interest in as soon as possible. And I suppose more than that, something that a vendor wouldn't consider. You know, why would I need to be bothered about that? Surely that's something the buyer takes care of. So we just thought, do you know what? Should we do something that puts searches in the consumer hands to give them choice, to enable them to engage with them earlier in the transaction, to help out, because people don't want to be bystanders. So that's kind of where Property Searches Direct came about. And we listened to the market. We looked at what we were doing. We've engaged with people moving home and asked them what their wants and needs are, what their appetite was to actually get involved in the process. And we were quite surprised at how engaged they were, how much appetite they had for knowledge, and how much they didn't know that the things that they weren't being presented with could actually impact on their timescales quite significantly. So we just said, okay, let's not go high tech at the outset. Let's just put some opportunities out there or some products out there that would enable people to get a grip of what they were doing. And now we're in the process of taking our messaging into the estate agency audience to say, actually, there's huge appetite. You kind of need to wake up and smell the coffee a little bit and say, actually, there is a slightly different way of doing things that can seriously impact upon your business model, your clients' enjoyment of actually moving home, and how quickly you can turn your pipelines over. So that's kind of where we came from.
It's interesting there because you use the word catastrophic delays sometimes, and that's often true that we need to, as agents, understand that when people are moving home, the delays that are caused to them can be the difference between them getting the next move of their dream or not. Financially, it can make all the difference and it can be catastrophic. The other thing is that when we look to sort of try and take the pain out of the moving process, if you were to ask somebody how their house sale went, they'll never tell you that, oh, it just took ages for us to find a buyer, or the agent's photos weren't very good, or anything that the agent did up until that point. They would always talk to you about the conveyancing process because that is the bit that they remember was most painful. And so the question is whether or not from a conveyancer's point of view, we've probably not gone out of our way to explain or demystify that conveyancing process and actually explain to people, well, what are searches? How long do they last for? Can they be transferred? There's a lot of mystique over that area of what conveyancers have been doing for a long time.
Yeah, totally. I would say the conveyancing market has definitely shown its own cracks over this last year. I think if you pressure test something, you can see what sort of gives. And I think the conveyancing market has definitely shown where the cracks are. But of course, the challenge has been everyone's been so busy. And as a business, trying to make a difference, I suppose it's been really frustrating. I suppose my really animated video with you all those months ago was right at the pinnacle of biggest frustration. Seeing the car crash happening and realizing that not enough people were doing anything about it. So yeah, those effing and jeffing moments were born out of for God's sake, seriously, because, you know, as a search supplier, we get screamed at. You know, we get screamed at by the people moving home because the estate agent said, oh, it's all the conveyancer's fault. And the conveyancer said it's all the search agent's fault. And we're going, hold on just a minute, right? You put the property on the market in January, you sold it in February, the searches were ordered in April, and we're now in May, getting close to June, and you're screaming at us.
Yeah.
There's a limit, you know, there's a limit to how much we can take. And that's probably why, well, it is one of the reasons why we said there has to be a better way, because we don't like being screamed at. And actually, when you explain the process to a client and say, had you been given the opportunity to know the impact that this would have on your transaction, had you been given the opportunity to make a difference, would you have done so? The answer is absolutely yes, I would.
Yeah.
Had you knowingly gone into this process, knowing that if you behaved in a slightly different way, the output would be dramatically different, would you have done something about it? Yes, I would. And then they say, well, why didn't the solicitor tell me about it? Why didn't my estate agent tell me about it? And I just had to say, well, they don't know, because, to be fair, everyone's so busy blaming somebody so that they end up with the good Trustpilot review, rather than saying, you're right, I should know more about this. I should have told you more about this at the outset. You know, I knew you'd be saying, you know, you'll be moving by June the 30th, but actually the reality is you couldn't possibly have done. And actually now in hindsight, there are things that we could have done. And we're just having to just roll everything back and say, let's now start to understand the things that we should have learned from, because I did a piece months ago now on the fact that every transaction has a deadline. You know, forget June, forget the SDLT deadlines. Every transaction has a deadline. Someone's moving for a reason. They're getting pregnant. So they're pregnant. They're getting married. They're divorcing. Someone's died. Their job relocation. Their new schools. Everyone's got a deadline.
Full gamut, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And when someone comes to you as an agent and says, the first thing you'd ask someone is, why are you moving? Why are you moving? Surely that's on everyone's agenda. Why are you moving? They'll come out with a reason. And that reason has some sort of time mark stamped into it that they, whether you believe it or not, are working to it. That everyone has an expectation of time scale. So unless you start talking about the logistics of that time scale and either supporting it by putting steps into place to enable them to hit it, or managing their expectations appropriately based on data that you have available to you to say, I can tell you now that won't happen and these are the reasons why, and then managing expectations to set a new deadline or set a new expectation of deadline, then, you know, if you don't do that at the outset, there's a car crash waiting to happen. So all we're trying to say to agents is, look, there's a better level of understanding and there's a better level of customer service delivery just by being aware of the impact that things that you have thus far had nothing to do with, but by understanding what they are and how they're impacted and what the nuances in your area are, then you can deliver a better service. And sometimes the best way to deliver a great service is simply by managing someone's expectations. You know, because if you manage someone's expectations, they will be delighted when their expectations are met. And if that's timescale, then you better watch out.
I've often wondered whether, because I have lots of conversations with conveyancers, and sometimes they know that a deadline is not going to be achievable, but they choose to only really impart that advice to the client very close to the deadline, because they feel that it's easier to sort of, or it's better to let them down perhaps after an amount of work has been done, rather than to manage those expectations up front. Are we saying, Daniel, that the cure is just starting the process earlier, or is it more nuanced than that?
I think that's a big question. Why doesn't the conveyancer talk about the pitfalls sooner? Simply because if you ask a conveyancer how long is this going to take, they're going to say, there are so many third parties that we're reliant on, I couldn't possibly tell you. If it was just down to us, we'd have it done in X amount of time, but they can't. They're never, ever, ever going to commit to a timescale. They just won't. And the ones that do are literally hanging themselves out to dry when it doesn't get met because you told me it would happen by now. So no conveyancer is ever going to do that. So we've got to look at the component parts that are controllable. That's all we can do. We can all look at the bits that we can control. What can the conveyancer do to make themselves more effective? What can the client do to help out to make themselves more effective? What can the agent do to help out to make things more effective? And it's realizing that everyone's got a common goal. And the bit that's been missing over the last 12, 14 months is it feeling as though everyone's fighting against each other and there isn't actually a common goal. And of course there is. The conveyancer's not getting paid if people don't move. The estate agent's not getting paid if people don't move. And the client's not paying anyone if they don't move. Everyone wants to move. So actually everyone's direction is aligned. It's the fact that no one wants to take the blame for what might go wrong. And the estate agent will say, well, I did my bit because look, you've got a sole subject contract board out. We were fantastic. Anything that goes wrong from now on is the conveyancer's fault.
Yeah.
And the conveyancer's then saying, well, look, we'll do our best bit, but there's so many third parties. So anything that goes wrong is someone else's fault. And everyone's trying to hand off the blame. So it's going to be a really difficult conversation once the horse has already bolted to say something might go wrong here.
Yeah.
And who's going to be brave enough to say that? So I always said the agent holds all the keys. When you're an agent delivering a service and you're effectively in that position of consult, where someone comes to you and says, this is what I want to achieve, if you've done your work and you understand the process, you understand the pitfalls in your area, you understand the challenges that the client's going to have, and you've had that conversation and have set expectations or have a clear understanding of timescales, no one's going to feel disappointed if they still decide to move because they've already set that expectation. I mean, let's just give you an example. I was looking at some of our figures today in terms of the expectations that a client might have on the 27th of August. So today's the 27th of August, David. Someone comes into your office or meets one of your guys and says, I want to move before Christmas. 27th of August, what do you reckon?
So it's doable, isn't it?
It should be, shouldn't it? Should be really doable.
Yeah.
So if we consider that on the 27th of August, you're in an area where the local authority search is taking 40 working days. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we order the search today, that search will come back on the 25th of October. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good, doesn't it? So let's bear in mind that today's the 27th of August. You take a property to the market. You promise those people they're going to move before Christmas. Oh, yeah, get your Christmas stuff out of the loft, put it in boxes. You know, you're going to be moving it, celebrating your new house. And you take 2 weeks to sell it. Now, let's face it, we're coming into a market where things are going to slow down. You may not sell a property overnight. There's not a great deal of stock. There's not a great deal of appetite either. So we're going into a slightly cooler period. It may actually be normal as a market, but you take 2 weeks to sell the property. That client, your buyer, takes the end of that week or so to actually complete their paperwork, formally instruct that conveyancer. Now, the Conveyancing Association said that on average, a conveyancer won't order a local authority search until about 6.5 weeks into the transaction. Okay. So 6.5 weeks later, the searches are actually ordered. When do you think those searches come back? I'll tell you, 10th of January.
Right. So that's missing that Christmas deadline.
That's totally missing the deadline. And that's 27th of August in an area where your searches are taking 40 working days. And I can tell you now that they'll come back on the 10th of January. Now, they could indemnify. Okay. But if you think on day one, even if the buyer understood the challenges and the buyer bought those searches the day they agreed to buy that property, they could come back in October. If the vendor just took the stance and said, I'll just buy the local authority search, because let's face it, a drainage and water report takes 10 days, a ground report takes a couple of days, an environmental report can take 2 or 3 hours, chancellor indemnity policy will take a few hours. The local search is your problem. But if you order that and it takes 40 days and it comes back on the 25th of October, the buyer can go and buy the rest of their pack. The vendor spent their 130 quid on the local authority search that comes back on the 25th of October.
Yeah.
Are they moving before Christmas?
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So given that that's the case, then these are some sort of frequently asked questions for you guys, I'm sure. But there's the myth out there that searches have to be carried out by the buyer's solicitor only, that they can't be relied upon if a third party has commissioned them, and that they can't be extended. They have a ticker on them, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Let's dispel the illusions. Right. So it isn't an illusion that a search needs to be, certainly Barclays, I read the Barclays policy only this week. Barclays require a search to be no older than 3 months old at the point of exchange and 6 months old at the point of completion. So it's not a myth, that they are a ticking time bomb. So whereas in the height of the frenzy, we were empowering vendors to buy their entire search pack, things were selling quickly. They had to move by the 30th of June to satisfy their buy. It was the absolute right thing to do because things were moving quickly. When we're migrating into a slightly slower market, we're taking the consultative view with clients individually to say, okay, unless you're really confident that things are going to sell quickly, it's really not advisable that you buy your entire search pack. However, if you're in an area where it might take 75, 90 working days or more for the local authority search to come back, that's fine because it won't start the clock ticking until it's actually completed. So effectively, you've got 90 days of marketing for it to come complete. And then you've got another 3 months until that search actually expires. So you've got quite a long time. So there's still time to play with. But yeah, it is a conversation piece to have with people. Okay. But just bear in mind that even a buyer at the day that you agree to sale to them, they buy their searches. You are saving on average 6.5 weeks because that's the time point at which a conveyancer might get around to doing it. What was the other part of that question?
So yeah, effectively, we were talking about whether or not those searches are assignable.
Assignable, yes, indeed. Yeah. So the other part of this is who can buy them. Now, a search is a search that is reputable, is search code compliant, and it's COPSO regulated. Search code was set out to protect the buyer, the seller, the conveyancer, and the lender. And they are property specific. There is no client data on there whatsoever. You are buying an environmental report, drainage and water report, local authority search for that property. Okay. So it doesn't matter who buys it. It's a valid document that is set out to offer security and peace of mind to all collaborators and all stakeholders in the process. So anyone can buy it. And you must be in the position where you've transacted on a property, your purchase has fallen through, you know there are searches there, you resell it, and you say, can we have those searches? Has anyone ever said no?
It's seen as being a loss at that point. It's a lost cause for them because they're not using it. Yeah.
But it was a buyer. So the buyer's fallen through. The property's still there. The searches still exist. No conveyancer will turn around and say, I won't have those. Why? Yeah. Because they are duty bound to deliver a service that's best for their client. If there are valid, compliant reports available in date that provide them with the data and security that they need to satisfy themselves, their client, and the lender, they're duty bound to accept them. Now, they may have a preference for a green one, or I might want a yellow one, or I'd order one from Joe Bloggs down the road. But as the document is concerned, can they say no to it if it ticks all their boxes? And the answer is absolutely not, particularly when their client's saying, you do as I'm asking you to do, and it's in my interest that you accept that for the sake of time. So
interestingly, that will mean then that if estate agents are worrying about, say, using your service because it may disrupt the arrangements that they have with solicitors that are already their preferred conveyancers, if you like, and they don't want to step on their toes, they don't need to worry about that, because in actual fact, you're not taking away the conveyancing work from anybody. You're in fact enabling them to get their job done more efficiently and more quickly.
Yeah, so let's look at that. And we've had a number of clients come to us saying, can you send a document to my conveyancer to put their mind at ease that I'm not buying some back alley piece of rubbish? And on our home movers page, you can now download a PDF document that provides appropriate links to the conveyancer. They can download draft copies of all our insurance policies, or the draft documentation to see exactly what they're getting, and evidence to say that each of the component parts are COPSO covered and search code compliant, and all the rest of it. So it's as quick as that. We had a client only on Tuesday of this week that turned around and said, my client says I can't do that. And he said, I'm not the sort of person that will be told that I can't do something. So I want to just get on and do it anyway. Can I send him something? And I sent this guy at Bindman Solicitors a piece of paper. He emailed me straight back, copied his client in, and said to his client, can you just let me know when you've ordered them?
Perfect.
And that solicitor,
better than that.
That solicitor straight away said to his client, I think that's a bit dodgy. He received our paperwork and then he said, let me know when you've ordered them. I don't have an issue with them. Why doesn't he have an issue with them? Because there's nothing to have an issue with them about. There's nothing wrong with them. They are compliant. But if you look at the solicitors themselves now, and everyone says that solicitors find it difficult to change, and yeah, we all do. We all find it difficult to change. Every agent finds it difficult to change. You find what you do day to day, and you do it the next day, and it works, and you keep doing it. No one really thinks about what better looks like if what you do works. So when you look at the conveyancing process, it is a whole load of ticking boxes. And if you scream at a conveyancer and say, do it quicker, they will simply say, I've still got the same number of boxes to tick. How can I possibly do it quicker? So what we're saying is, well, why don't we just take a few of those boxes away? Why should you have to deal with certain things? Why should you have to engage with the client? Go through, well, you need to go through the IDML process, but let's just say you go through the IDML process, you engage with the client and obviously tell them how much their searches are going to be. You then take money for their searches. You put the searches in your account. You engage your accountants and you open a ledger for the client. And then at the point at which you as a conveyancer are happy to order the searches, you then get around to saying, well, okay, I've got a contract. I'm pretty sure you've got your finances. I'm pretty, okay, now let's look at the ledger and see if we've got enough money on the account, and then we place the order. Then we place an order. Then we get an invoice. We've got to satisfy the invoice from that supplier. And then the accounts team are involved. It's just an absolute headache. Surely, to just say to a client, go and buy your searches. If you're confident that you're buying that property and you can afford it and you're happy the vendor's selling to you, you can order your searches quicker than we as your conveyancer can. We don't need to take your money. We don't need to open a ledger. We don't need to panic about our PII insurance and getting the order wrong. You order them and get them delivered to us.
It's interesting because the debate on whether or not estate agents should be encouraging their clients to become sale ready earlier in the process. So the best practice guide, I suppose, would be that if I go and visit you in your home, I value your property, and you say, yes, David, I'd like you to sell the house. I should then be having a chat with you and saying, listen, guys, the earlier you get on this, the better your chances are of cutting down the amount of time taken to convey your property. And it may actually stop a property from falling through because timescales are important to everybody, and the sooner you get on with this, the better. Now, what prevents me as an agent from having that conversation with the client is that I know that most clients delay instructing a solicitor for as late as they can in the process because they are worried about incurring costs.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And right. Once they've pushed that button, there is this archaic notion, because I think it's gone by that kind of solicitor has now gone, but there is this archaic notion of the old timer solicitor that hits the stopwatch as soon as they pick up the phone to you, and therefore every minute is billable and all that sort of stuff. I think within the conveyancing sphere, largely speaking, it's almost like a fixed price scenario. It doesn't really increase. For that reason, you don't get loads and loads of time with your solicitor. But as far as the public are concerned, they may be hesitant on instructing a solicitor. This, to me, feels like you are introducing not the fact that they need to instruct a solicitor or fill in any complicated forms or worry about where it is their deeds are stored or any of that stuff. This is really you're purchasing your searches. You're going to be ready for the minute that you do.
Well, it's a little bit broader than that, because when a client instructs their solicitor, they are sent their legal protocol forms, their terms of engagement. There's a whole load of paperwork that needs to come out. And we said right at the outset when we set up the business, we really should be enabling people to prepare themselves for a move. And what does that actually look like? When a sale gets agreed, you're right. People tend to look at conveyancers at the point of need. I now need a solicitor. I should now put a name on a memorandum of sale, and I better go away and make sure they're instructed. And they assume that process will be really quick. The minute they pick up the phone to conveyancer and the conveyancer says, yes, I'll act for you, and they put that name on the memorandum of sale, surely they can just act for me. Well, the reality is they can't. They can't act for you straight away. They need to have ID AML reporting for you. They need to know who you are and that you're not dodgy. They need you to sign their terms of business that you need to read and sign and get back to them. And they need some information from you if you're transacting a sale. They need your property information form. They need your fixtures and contents form. And if it's leasehold, they need your leasehold information form. So without that, they can't put a contract together. They can't do anything for you. So we've been building what we call get legally prepared pages that enable estate agents to point their clients at an online resource that guides them through some steps that they really should consider getting to grip with. The first one is, of course, provide us with an ID AML report. And as estate agents, that's an administrative burden. You've got to identify these people. You've probably got to fund some sort of solution. And we've just said, look, let the client go to a page that's all branded yours and let them buy an ID AML reporting solution that they can do remotely. And the first thing you'll hear about them is a completed report in your secure dashboard, right? What does that tell you as an estate agent? If I was the estate agent, it tells me they're committed. Point one, how proactive are my clients? These guys have done their ID AML reports. They're a committed client. Point two is fill out your protocol forms, right? You don't need to instruct a conveyancer to do this. They're there. Start filling out your property information forms. Yeah. And as an agent, I'll be having a conversation with them, asking them to get on and do that. Why? There's information in there that's pertinent to me as your agent marketing it. I need to know about boundary disputes or enabling disputes or any challenges you've got with the property or building regs or the rest of it. And your property information form will guide you through some fairly simple to answer questions, but ask you to amass paperwork to support the completion of that form.
Yeah, that's really important.
It is really important. It's vital to it. And people that don't understand how vital the completion of those protocol forms are really missing the point. There's no point in saying you've instructed a solicitor and a memorandum of sale going out and everyone doing their sales progression if the client hasn't filled out their paperwork. There's no contract going out. Meanwhile, you've got a buyer who hasn't got to fill out any forms apart from agree terms of engagement and do their ID. The buyer sat there going, send my solicitor a contract. Why have you not sent my solicitor a contract? A week goes by. My solicitor still hasn't got a contract. As a buyer, I'm having doubts that you're serious about selling this property to me. Another week goes by. Now, this happens time and time again. It is a fall through waiting to happen, not through anyone's real fault, but because reasonable doubt has been sown into the buyer's mind that you're not serious about selling to them. and they're worried about not getting their dream home. So it's kind of the worst way to set up a sale or to go into a relationship or a conveyance with that "I don't really trust you" thing. So what we said to agencies, look, on these pages, we're going to make the legal protocol forms freely available for people to engage with and complete during marketing. And it should be up to you to say to them, got your ID, fantastic. Have you made a start on your protocol forms yet? Or, yeah, I've got a bit of work to do. Right, yeah, but crack on. Because when I've sold your property and you engage with the solicitor, without those, there's nothing going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's
not to mention those protocol forms in themselves could be important to the agent during the marketing process, because it's not widely publicized, but it's a fact that agents have a duty to disclose anything that could materially affect somebody's decision to purchase the property or the value that they place on that property as well.
Yeah.
And we're not, as an industry, making those key facts available early enough on in the process. So typically, a lot of agents are still, you'd be amazed how many agents list a property without even noting whether it's a leasehold or a freehold property. And those are the very sort of basics you would expect for them to disclose.
Yeah.
But you know, where the boundaries are, which pieces of land are included in this sale, whether there have been any right of way issues or anything like that. These are all sort of things that agents should really be offering upfront to a buyer so they can make the best decisions.
Totally. I mean, if I was back in agency now, I would not take a client seriously until I'd had their ID forms and I'd had copies of their protocol forms. I'd want those in my file.
Yeah.
And I'd want to know, I'd want to read those and understand them and understand, you know, what I'm trying to sell. The BASPI form is coming, you know, the upfront buyers and sellers property information form. We've digitized one of those for when it's globally accepted. From that, if anyone does fill out a BASPI form, we can data scrape and fill out a protocol form. But, you know, that is a form that should be interrogated by the agents. So I suppose one thing people ask us is, well, why don't I just instruct my conveyancer sooner? It's probably a thought you've had. Why wouldn't you just instruct a conveyancer sooner? The reality is conveyancers are busy people and they have to have their priorities in the right place. Particularly while things are really busy, they're under real pressure to push live files through. So are they going to focus a great deal of effort and resource in a property that hasn't sold yet?
Probably not. Really? Yeah.
Are they going to have resources to hold your hands to help you fill out your protocol forms and make sure you do them? No. They're going to be focusing on live files, stuff that they've got contracts on that they're having to push forward to exchange of contracts. So if they're not in a position where they've got a resource to hold people's hands, make sure they're filling out protocol forms, making sure they're getting those fences certificates together, they're building insurance stuff, all that stuff amassed. If they're not doing it, surely it's common sense that someone else does. And that someone else is actually the estate agent who's selling the property, who has an invested interest in that paperwork being collated. Why? Because they need it for the conveyancer, but they also need it for their marketing. So just instructing a conveyancer when you go to the market is not going to set the world alight, because that's not the delay. I could instruct a solicitor today. Why? Because they could send me the terms of engagement, I could sign them and send them back, and I can give them all my protocol forms and say, there you go. And I can fill out CREDAS via an app today and have it land on their dashboard this afternoon, because that takes a matter of 3 or 4 minutes. But I couldn't do that if I hadn't even started filling out my paperwork yet.
Fantastic. Daniel Hamilton Charlton, thank you very much. Today has been a real eye-opener.